the vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors, Trump declared falsely on Tuesday, lending credence to an erroneous theory that Pence can overturn the results of the election during Wednesday's tally of Electoral College votes, and again pressuring his top lieutenant to act outside constitutional bounds. His message came the morning after Trump riled up a crowd of supporters in Georgia using Pence's upcoming engagement on the Senate floor. "I hope Mike Pence comes through for us. I have to tell you," Trump said Monday night during a political rally in Georgia, where his public arm twisting was met with cheers. "Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him as much." It was a direct message to a vice president whose defining political characteristic remains his unyielding fealty to Trump. How Pence proceeds on Wednesday when he presides over the certification of the Electoral College tally could determine his future relationship with the man he has served loyally, even in moments of political peril. The two men had lunch together on Tuesday, according to two sources. Their lunches are typically put on their public schedules, but was not listed Tuesday. Over the past several weeks, Trump has become intensely interested in Pence's ceremonial role during the certification of the Electoral College. He has raised the matter repeatedly with his vice president and has been confused as to why Pence can't overturn the results of the election on January 6, sources told CNN. As he was flying to Florida for his vacation last month, Trump retweeted a call from one of his supporters for Pence to refuse to ratify the Electoral College results on January 6, a prospect that has captured his imagination even if it remains completely impossible. Pence and White House aides have tried to explain to him that Pence's role is more of a formality, and he cannot unilaterally reject the Electoral College votes. Pence has walked Trump through his largely procedural role in hopes of downplaying the pressure on him, a strategy that doesn't appear to have worked given the president explicitly urged him to take action Monday night without saying exactly what he wanted Pence to do. There is little expectation among Trump or Pence's aides that he will divert from his constitutionally prescribed role. He will follow the law and Constitution, one person familiar with the matter said. Undeterred, Trump still seems taken with the idea and has not let up on asking Pence how he could somehow reverse or prevent Biden from being certified the winner. According to people familiar with the conversations, "He's a wonderful man and a smart man and a man that I like a lot, but he's going to have a lot to say about it," Trump said on Monday. "You know one thing with him. You're going to get straight shots. He's going to call it straight. Recognition of limitations." While Trump has been pressuring Pence to toss out results from individual states, both publicly and privately, a senior Trump advisor acknowledged to CNN's Jim Acosta there is a recognition inside what's left of the Trump campaign that the vice president can only do so much as he presides over the proceedings. Officials inside the campaign and their close allies have spent days debating just how far Pence can go. The advisor said, "Pence is just as frustrated, just as upset as Trump," the advisor said, "but the issue is what constitutionally can be done about it." A set of fringe lawyers and some White House aides have been urging Trump to view Pence's upcoming role in the Electoral College tally as one of delayer and obstructor, rather than one that can simply declare Trump the winner. According to people familiar with the conversations, the argument being offered to Trump, and one he has subsequently conveyed to Pence, is that instead of simply acting in his constitutionally prescribed pro forma role, Pence could delay the certification beyond Wednesday and ultimately force the question of who won the election to either the House of Representatives or the Supreme Court. "Let them sue," has been the message from the group to Trump, leading him to believe he could again end up at the Supreme Court. The lawyers, which have included Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman, have run him through several options in various meetings over the past several days. and the president has eagerly listened and internalized their arguments. People familiar said, Trump has spent several hours each day discussing the matter. One official said, the first option, which the lawyers have told Trump is unlikely to succeed, is that objections brought by Republican lawmakers lead to so much gridlock that the contest is decided by the House of Representatives. This is viewed as a very remote possibility given the number of senators currently on board with raising objections is not enough to allow them to succeed. More convincing to Trump has been the argument that after Pence listens to the arguments and objections, he refuses to certify electors from the 6 states that conservatives insist are in dispute: Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin and Georgia. This would be well outside the role prescribed Pence, which is to open the certificates from each state and present them to the tellers, and, at the end of the tally, announce who won. There is also no evidence of widespread voter fraud that would lend credence to the objections. Decertifying those 6 states wouldn't make Trump the winner. Instead, because neither of the candidates would meet the 270 vote threshold, Trump's lawyers believe it would send the question to the House of Representatives. Because each state delegation, as opposed to each member, gets 1 vote, Trump would prevail. Procedure. Traditionally, the vice president presides over the electoral vote certification, though it's not a requirement. In 1969, then Vice President Hubert Humphrey didn't preside over the process since he had just lost the presidential election to Richard Nixon. The president pro tempore of the Senate presided instead. One source close to Pence said it is not seen as a good option for Republican Sen. Chuck Grassley, the current president pro tempore, to be there instead of Pence on January 6. Pence and Trump were seen meeting in the Oval Office on Monday, along with White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Trump's daughter Ivanka Trump, before Trump departed for Georgia. According to Giuliani, the pair were set to discuss how they would proceed on January 6. That decision has to get made by the president and vice president. And they are actually meeting today and going through all the research. They probably aren't going to make that decision by sometime tomorrow, Giuliani said on a podcast hosted by Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist. Giuliani ticked those several issues he characterized as constitutional matters that he said Pence and Trump would discuss. He framed the decision as one for both Trump and Pence, even though the president has made clear he believes Pence should somehow act to prevent the certification, and Pence, in private, has explained his role as merely ceremonial. On Sunday, Pence met for a lengthy session with the Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough in his office, just off the Senate floor. Pence Chief of Staff Mark Short, who was also in the Capitol and seen at one point going into the office of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, denied the purpose of the meeting was to find a way to overturn the Electoral College results. No, Short said, we were just meeting. Asked why he was meeting with the parliamentarian, Short said they are trying to figure out the exact process. Presidential outrage. Still, procedure and process can hardly unnerve Pence from the outrage of a president who still believes the election was stolen from him and has been fed conspiracies about the results from a band of fringe advisors. Even as recently as this weekend, Trump's trade advisor Peter Navarro claimed on Fox News that Pence had the power to move back Inauguration Day, contradicting the Constitution. Last month, Trump offered tacit approval for the lawsuit filed by his Republican ally Rep. Louis Gohmert, pressuring Pence into overturning the election results, and was later disappointed to learn his own Justice Department was asking a judge to reject the suit. According to a person familiar with the matter, Trump and Pence discussed the matter at the end of last week. Trump for weeks has told associates that he does not believe Pence is fighting hard enough for him. That frustration is partly what led Pence's chief of staff to issue a statement Saturday night, saying he welcomed efforts in Congress to raise objections to the Electoral College, though several noted it seemed carefully worded and did not say he supported the objections outright. Vice President Pence shares the concerns of millions of Americans about voter fraud and irregularities in the last election. Short wrote, the Vice President welcomes the efforts of members of the House and Senate to use the authority they have under the law to raise objections and bring forward evidence before the Congress and the American people on January 6. Speaking at his own rally in Georgia on Monday, Pence offered little insight into his thinking about January 6, even as he bolstered Trump's false claims of voter fraud. Instead, he kept his remarks vague. I know we've all got our doubts about the last election, he said. I want to assure you, I share the concerns of the millions of Americans about voting irregularity. I promise you, come this Wednesday, we'll have our day in Congress. We'll hear the objections. We'll hear the evidence. Pence did not say what happens after.